Now I want to play hypothetics just for a second with the 2022 Senate. And one of the things I want to point out too about what you just mentioned was the fact that if, things had gone the other way, the quote unquote pro-choice way back after, after you were conceived, it would have eradicated everything that you've been able to bring into the world. It never would have even had a chance. And that's what you don't know. Those are those unforeseen consequences. You don't know who you're depriving the opportunity to live.
And it's very personal for me.
Yes.
I've told my story many times, and yet it is my story and it's very real to me. And, everything has not been a bed of roses. I have never glorified how I was conceived. I have a young daughter myself, and it would just be devastating if something like that had happened to her. Right. Or happens to her. And yet there I was. And for me, I think about my babies. I mean, they are, I know I'm biased. I own it, but they are amazing. And they're really good people. And our nation, my son just graduated from high school. He's getting ready to go off to college. And we were talking yesterday, I think it was, and he was just sharing his heart. And I'm sitting there like, I'm so grateful. Our nation is going to call us blessed, my husband and I, because my son is getting ready to leave the home and go into the world. I mean, he's going to be a net positive for our nation. And I think about that, like all of that would have been eradicated and my babies would never have been able to be alive. And they have blessed me and my husband, and they're going to bless our nation. And so again, but it all started back with my grandmother and others coming around my very young mom and seeing value in my life. Yeah. And so
the support system was
there.
That's
why I'm pro-life.
And that's the best. I mean, literally, there is no better reason to be pro-life than what we just heard. Now, 2022, let's say you pull it off in the primary, or maybe Donald Trump makes the right choice and endorses you, and that gets you up, a little bit more support there in 2022. And then, unfortunately, and I'm saying this, tongue in cheek, we don't get John Fetterman in the Senate, so we don't see hoodies, we don't see gym shorts, we don't have any of the silly moments. He's been very interesting lately, but we would have Kathy Barnette in the Senate, and maybe because Kathy Barnette made it in Pennsylvania, a couple of other Senate seats, maybe Georgia would have turned our way, etc. And we have the majority. Who does Kathy Barnette, if she was a senator? Who does Kathy Barnette want to see as the Senate Majority Leader?
Rand Paul.
Oh my God! I knew I liked you. I knew I liked you. There was
hands down.
What everybody doesn't understand is there is only one right answer to that question.
It is. Like that doesn't take long, right? I mean, and for me, the litmus test is very simple, right?
By the way, that was quick. It was just Rand Paul done. Just incredible.
Okay, I'm going through the list in my mind, Rand Paul. Like, I don't even have to continue this list in my mind. Right. But if for no other reason, right? I mean, we, especially Republicans, we get stuck on silly things with people. But for no other reason is during 2020, 2021, 2022, during some of our darkest days as a nation, and especially if you're a Republican, God forbid you're a conservative Republican, there were very few Republican leaders across our nation who stood up for us, who stood up when businesses were being shot down, who stood up when schools were being shut down, who stood up for us when people were being forced to take an experimental jab, whether they wanted to or not. For no other reason. But the fact that you can look at, I'm thinking about all of my elected officials here in Pennsylvania. I can count them on one hand and still have fingers left over of who was willing to stand up and say, wait a minute, this is not right. This is not America. But Rand Paul, from a federal perspective, he was there from day one, standing up, pushing back against the narrative. And so if for no other reason, there are a number of reasons why I like him, but if there were no other reason except for that, when we needed people to have a backbone and to stand up for America way of life, the American way of life, Rand Paul was one of very few who chose to swim upstream.
Yep.
And I think we need more of that. If nothing else, we need more of that. Leaders who will stand up and say, I will not bend the knee. I will not use these silly pronouns. I will not say the emperor has clothes on when clearly the emperor has no clothes
Right.
on. We need that. And in this next batch of leaders.
I agree 100% with that. And I love how, Rand Paul, sometimes he ruffles feathers on our side too. And I think that's okay. I mean, I'm a sports fan, right? If you go easy in practice, like just ask the New York Jets, we just mentioned that before, you lose. We got to be a little tougher with each other, not destructive, but iron sharpens iron. And sometimes Rand Paul can be like that. There are a few others, but he's my guy in the Senate. I love it. And I by the way, I want to just be clear, that was not rehearsed.